afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Voices That Heal podcast. I am your girl Jams, and as you can hear, I have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me. But I'm still excited to be with you guys today. It has been a while since I've been live, and so I am just grateful to be kicking off the dust here and bringing the microphone back into view for a few minutes. But I'm excited because we are counting down to the African American Lung Cancer Patient and Caregiver Summit. It's happening April 23rd to the 25th in New Orleans, and it's hosted by the Heal Collaborative. I am over the moon right now. We are like a month and a half or so-ish away or something like that. Maybe 2 months. I don't know. Maybe my math ain't mathing. But in any case, we are getting dangerously close to the summit. And so to kick up a little bit of momentum and excitement, I wanted to bring onto the show today 2 Louisiana natives who are going to talk a little bit about why they're excited to attend the summit and then some of the things they're looking forward to, but also why this summit is vital and important to the Louisiana community. We're going to talk a little bit about Cancer Alley and things of that nature. But mostly, I just want to introduce you to 2 Louisiana natives so that you can get a feel of what it's like right now in terms of excitement for attending the summit. So I'm going to bring to the stage with me Mr. Reginald Vicks, who is the COO of Crescent Care Community Health Center. Again, cold is kicking in. And then I'm also going to bring to the stage Monet Williams, who is a lung cancer patient survivor and advocate extraordinaire. And we are going to let them introduce themselves so you can get a feel of who they are and how they came to be part of the Heal Collaborative. So I'm going to start with you, Reginald. Why don't you give a little bit of background on who you are and how you got involved with the Heal team?
Sure. So my name is Reginald Vicks, and as Jamie said, I serve as the Chief Operations Officer for Crescent Care Community Health Center here in New Orleans. And that's an FQHC, or Federally Qualified Health Center, that I've been with now for about 11 years. So I'm also a lung cancer survivor, going into my 5th year of curative treatment.
I did not know that, actually.
Curative treatment, yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm happy to be here today. This is a topic, obviously, that's close to my heart, and I'd like to spread the word about how we can stay healthy in Louisiana.
Well, now that you said it like that, and now that we know that you are also a survivor, that definitely changes the dynamic of the conversation. I'm super, well, not excited, but I'm grateful for the ability to expand with 2 lung cancer patients now. I guess 3 if we count myself as well. But yeah, that really adds to it. You know, I thought I had 1 patient and 1 person who was working in the community. It's nice to know that it's 2 patients, you know, so this is really, really an awesome conversation to be having. Monet, welcome to the show. I want to also give you an opportunity to share your story a little bit and your connection to the Heal Collaborative. So why don't you go ahead?
Hi, how y'all doing? My name is Ikeon Williams, better known as Monet. It's my alias. Um, how I came into the community, I was diagnosed with lung cancer June 23rd or something like that, 24th of last year. Um, I basically was looking for someone. I was seeing so many people pass away, to be honest. I was looking for someone that was alive. So I Googled YouTube and I found Jamie. But then maybe about 3, 4 months later, that's when me and her started communicating. And that's how I came a part of the lung cancer awareness community.
I was blown away when you reached out to me and you were like, we just started conversing with each other because you don't realize it. And I tell this story all the time, especially to some of the folks who have been, diagnosed and been living with it for a long period of time. You know, when we first got our diagnoses, we were looking at other survivors like, wow, they are like figureheads in this community and like everybody knows them. Like, you know, it's a large community, but a small one at the same time. And word of mouth will really, it'll really put you into rooms that you never really even expected to be in. And so when you reached out to me and you were just like, yeah, I found your page, I was just like, whoa, that really took me aback. And I was grateful. And I was also like, it actually just put a little bit of fire underneath me to make me realize, like, sometimes you do this content, especially when you're in this world, you do this content and you don't know if anybody's watching. You don't know if anybody cares. You don't feel like anybody's really paying attention. And then sometimes you get messages like the one you sent me and I was just like, oh, okay. All right. So this is why we do this stuff. Okay, awesome. So yeah, I mean, I'm over the moon. Number one, we haven't met before, any of us, and so I'm looking forward to meeting both of you in person in New Orleans in a couple of months. So that's going to be awesome.
Yes.
And when you guys get there, like so this is the third one. And when you guys get there, you'll see like just the camaraderie that's there between the patients and caregivers. I mean, there's going to be scientists in the room. We've got pharmaceutical companies. Like the way that the Heals Summit is sort of situated, you get the opportunity to rub elbows and talk and network and collaborate with so many people that like you just can't even imagine. And it's one of those things, and I'll kind of bring it full circle. Like I've been on alectinib or Alecensa now since the beginning of my diagnosis, and this is my what January 2019 is when I started taking that medicine, and I'm still on it, which is great. I was able to actually sit down and talk to the makers of the medication. The pharmaceutical company Genentech was there, and I got to actually just talk to them and let them know how grateful I was that they've made this medication and how it gave me my life back and how appreciative I was for the work that they were doing. And I remember they were like, "We don't get to hear from patients like you at all." And so they were just as taken aback as I was to be sitting in the same room with them and be able to share the story of how they've actually impacted somebody, living with this disease. So that's like in a nutshell the kind of stuff that gets to happen at these summits. It's like, I walked away with a point of contact at Genentech. So if I ever run into issues with my medication where, this medication is what, $15,000 a month or something crazy. Um,
20,000 for me.
yeah. So it's like if I ever run into any complications with getting this medicine, at least I know I've got literally the pharmaceutical company that I've met and I've made a connection with. Like it's just everything is just adding resources to your playbook so that as things come at you with this diagnosis, you have ways to navigate around it. And he'll put you in a room with so many different resources that you can tap into at any point in time. But enough about me and all my excitement about it. So it's happening in April. It's happening in New Orleans, which is great. So, as a first time attendee of the summit, what are you most looking forward to? Has anybody talked to you about what the agenda looks like or what any of the programs are so far?
So far a little bit about it. I was more so looking for is like immunotherapy, like if they had any type of immunotherapy for our type of cancer.
Hmm.
So I was looking forward for that and asking certain questions about it. But I can say this, like it's the least I have the least side effects from that medicine. Like I only time I really have side effects like the metallic taste in my mouth and when I don't eat properly.
Yeah.
When I
Yep.
don't eat properly. And I can also take my, y'all know I'm hitting it from both sides. So I know also take my holistic things along with it. And I don't have any side effects. So
That's
that's
all.
what I do love about the medicine. And it started working within like because I only been on it like 4 or 5 months in full time. Because at first I was taking the wrong dose. I was taking only 600 milligrams.
Oh, that's like half of the dose I take.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I started taking a full 1,200 dose.
Yep. Yep.
Till this day, I still don't know if I was stage 3 or stage 4 till this day because my scans. I had just got my scans in February 9th,
Hmm.
and my left lung is still normal. So
Okay.
it made me think that I have always been stage 3A the whole entire time. So,
No history of like lung cancer or smoking or anything like that in your family?
my grandmother, my
Okay.
grandmother,
Gotcha.
but she smoked cigarettes. Me, I worked in environments with cigarettes. I worked at casinos, worked in nightclubs. I was a bartender, hookah girl, and stuff like that. So,
Gotcha. Yeah,
yeah.
because I was going to say part of the reason too in my diagnosis, and we're going to get to you, Reginald, in a second. Part of my diagnosis and what I think kept me from seeking a second opinion for so long was the fact that like I had never smoked before or anything like that. I wasn't in that same kind of environments as you, but my right lung I think was so healthy that it was holding me down. Like I had no use of my left lung for I don't even know how long at this point, but I
Mhm.
just know that I feel like because my other lung was so, you know, undamaged, I suppose, it sort of compensated for the fact that I only had the one, and that's kind of what kept me from going to get a second opinion or maybe from noticing how bad the side effects had gotten for so long. And so it's interesting when I hear other folks that have that same situation happen.
I actually asked, like, I was going through the breeding place since like 2023 or maybe late 2022.
Yeah.
And I asked the doctors over and over again to give me a CT scan because I never felt like that before.
Mm,
And then beforehand, because they always say, as I do my research or whatever, they always say like could be a form of opening some parasitics. The same side I had the pneumonia on is the same side I had the cancer.
got you. Okay.
And it was on my right side. Yeah.
Well, I know in terms of the summit and with immunotherapy, I don't think stage 4 or ALK positive cancer responds to immunotherapy from what
Yeah,
I've
it
what I've
doesn't.
heard. Yeah.
It doesn't. And that's why I was like something like are like I want to know like if they are developing one for us.
Yeah, and I know there's
Yeah.
a section about AI as well and the advancements in AI for treating lung cancer. So that's also going to be an interesting conversation. But I think overall, there's a lot of people in the room that you can ask your questions to.
Hmm.
All the different types of questions you may have, doctors and like I said, scientists, other survivors, just to kind of get a general feel of what other folks have gone through. But yeah, those are two definitely, interesting conversations that will be probably happening at the summit. So you can make sure you're front row center for those ones.
Most
Um, Mr. Vix, what about you? What are you looking forward to the most about the summit? And has anybody shared the agenda with you as to what the conversations are going to look like?
Yeah, I'll be participating in a panel on the 23rd,
Okay,
and specifically speaking to my own journey dealing with lung cancer. My specifics are a little bit different than both of yours. I ended up with immune therapy, high dose chemotherapy, and radiation, um, some of which was happening simultaneously per the protocol that I was under at the time. Primarily because uh, the particular placement of my tumors made me um, not eligible for surgical intervention at all. So you know, so far scans every 6 months, and everything seems to be stable. You know, nothing more has come about. Immunotherapy for about a year, once a month, following the initial therapies, and so uh, I'm looking forward to ringing that bell in a few months.
I hear that. Oh, I
And
can't wait.
yeah, but one of the reasons why I feel this conference is so important is because as lung cancer survivors, and going through the process, we have a lot to offer to the community as far as um, what real aggressive health screening should be, preventive approaches to how you take care of yourself. Um, I cook a lot also, so it was devastating for me in the early days because I couldn't taste anything, and nothing would stay down for any length of time for a period of time.
Mm, okay.
Now I can taste everything, and I'm eating everything I can, and I cook all the time. So, you can recover from this. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but also you don't have to stop living your life and being engaged in the community, and contributing to the well-being of not only of yourself but for others, just because you have a cancer diagnosis. Um, Fortunately, um, my particular lung cancer originated in my lungs, and so it didn't. Although there were some genetic dyscrasias that uh, they're still not sure what type of cells. I have multiple different types of cells in the tumors that I have, and some of them they had never seen before. And so, it was interesting. I'm sure that some of my cells are in a research lab somewhere,
Oh yeah.
which is fine by me if it'll help somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I would say is that Southeast Louisiana has high levels of cancer of various types, especially in African American communities. And we tend to, in our community, to have restricted access to some of the technology that others may have. And so it's very important that we advocate for ourselves. And we share the knowledge that we have obtained going through this process, and also working with individuals who are going through this process. I'm also a nurse, and I've worked with oncology patients of various types over the years during my career. And so becoming a patient, was a challenge initially, but I leaned into it because, my oncologist said, hey, I said, hey, what's the survival chances? And
Oh,
she said, with aggressive therapy, 65%. So I
never
said,
ask that question. Ever. Never ask that question.
but,
I
those
think
are pretty good odds. And
Yeah,
nowadays, with the pharmaceutical technologies and other treatments and interventions, uh, there are many, many, many lung cancer survivors, but we have to make sure that we take advantage of all the opportunities to maintain our health and wellness.
definitely. Money, what were you going to say about that? And about, yeah, never ask about life
never asked that
expectancy.
question. Like I would never forget the day I asked my oncologist that, because my story was, he kept saying, "You too." Well, I'm of age. Well, I'm never really tell the age. I'm old. With a with a baby face, but I would never forget. He told my mom she's young, and I always get emotional and talk about this part because it's like, she's young. I don't know how to deal with her, and I think that we was a little bit behind because they was about to put me on chemo and radiation.
Oh, wow.
But he checked my biomarkers. They really don't check biomarkers at the hospital. I'm not gonna really say the hospital I'm at. I'll tell y'all in person. The hospital where I was at or whatever, they don't, he was, I think he was, by my case being so rare for him, that's why they could check my biomarkers. Thank God. And I was able to put on, I don't know how to say the medicine name,
Elective, yep.
electin, and I was able to be put on that. I remember him telling my mom, she's a hard case. We don't know how to deal with her because, number one, she's young. And I started flipping out. And I was asking him, how long I'm gonna live? How long I'm
Yep.
gonna live? How long I'm gonna live? So I started doing research. I mean, research all overseas. I didn't care. Like, I didn't just stick with America, Germany, Mexico, whatever. And I was like, I gotta get help. I gotta get help. And then I asked him, I said, well, what is the medicine? He was like, we don't know. So when they found out that the medicine was working for me, was through my first scans.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, you have 4 to 8 years, you have 18 months, you have 19 months or whatever. And if I wouldn't have looked at YouTube and looked at you, I was like, nah, I started counting the years and I started going back in your old videos. And I was like, well, she's still
Yep.
here. It's like, I was like, God, okay, that be that I would be, still be here. That was
Absolutely.
so scary. Like, that was so scary for someone to tell you we don't know how to deal with her.
Yeah. That is scary
So
because, I mean, you go
I
to a
had to go
doctor.
beyond the research. So
Yeah.
I found her, and I found a holistic doctor. Name is Antonio Jimenez. He's in Mexico.
Hmm.
He helped heal the woman. She's also on the same type of medicine I'm on. Kate.
Yep.
And at first I thought it wasn't for real because I was like, oh man, these are scammers. But when I and then I went on Instagram and I put on Elk Mutation, who's taking this medicine, and her name popped up. And she was like, I don't only have lung cancer, but now I have a mutation and stuff like that. And she was on her last limb. So they didn't, and then back then it was like 2018. So Elect Venom had probably just came out at that particular time. And so they put her back on it to help her with her brain metastasis. But Dr. Antonio, he helped her get rid of all that incident. She's a two-time survivor, but she's on the same type of target meds that we are on, and she's still here. You're
Yep.
still here. So it's like asking them that because they don't know. to be
Yep,
honest.
and I think folks have to remember that doctors are human too, and
Hmm.
they make mistakes. So like while we value everything that they tell us, we don't have to take everything at face value. Like Monet said earlier, do your own research, look into
Do it.
things, and get second and third opinions if you need to, because you really need multiple hands in this diagnosis. You can't take what everybody gives you at face value and just run with it, or you'll be running seven ways from Sunday, or even worse, have wrong information. Like you said, if they had given you chemo from the beginning, you would have had a problem with that too. Same thing with me. If they had given me chemo from the onset of my diagnosis, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, I probably
Because,
wouldn't be here today.
yeah,
I kept telling my family them that it's like you're not gonna do chemo. I said chemo. I said for my type, it wouldn't have worked for me.
yep,
I say because chemo doesn't work for my type of lung cancer.
mutation. Yep,
And I say the target meds would have worked. And I was like, it was probably I know it was God. By the grace of God, he made an my oncologist made an educated decision because he didn't know how to work with me.
yeah.
Because but I would never forget when he walked in, because he was like, "This is weird. She doesn't smoke that much." What was this? It's like, no, like, and so he was figuring it out. So the time he was figuring out, I was like, God, Lord Jesus, please let me find. And then he wound up putting me on those particular meds, and then it wound up helping.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I know how you came to know about the Summit Monet. It's probably from me.
Yes,
but
from
uh,
you,
but
from you.
Reginald, how did you find out about the Lung Cancer Summit, and how did because this is your first time attending. Most folks that are first time attendees don't necessarily jump on a panel. They kind of take it all in the first time around and maybe come back the next year and do a panel. So what made you kind of skip the line and go straight to the panel conversation of everything? And how did you find out about it?
Well, working in healthcare for as many years as I've been working in healthcare, um, someone at Heal Collaborative felt like I had something to offer. And after I shared with them that I was a lung cancer survivor, they asked me if I would be willing to share my story. And
Hmm.
so that's part of it. The other thing is I work with several nonprofits in New Orleans, and one of them is the New Orleans Musician and Assistance Foundation. And there are a lot of musicians, especially those who play wind instruments, who have a variety of different types of pulmonary issues, including lung cancer. And so there's a big push for preventive intervention in medicine in the musician and artist community. A lot of times they work in environments that allow smoking.
Hmm.
They're not always the healthiest environments that they have. So I, decided that maybe sharing my story and offering some feedback on, you know, um, self advocacy might be beneficial to some others. A lot of times people don't know how to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
And so, with a diagnosis like cancer, they become despondent. They may have had other family members who did not survive um, cancer or other disease processes, and so they feel like it's a death sentence. When in fact, there are so many things available to us to keep us healthy, but also that can cure us. And so it's important to me that the community is aware and that they know that they have, and our community knows that there are advocates out here who will be supportive and help, um, you know, individuals be able to navigate the healthcare system. Um, I mean, Monet and you, Jamie, are super highly motivated. You jumped right in, did your research, ask a million questions. But how many people don't have that sense of self assurance to be able to do that for themselves?
Yeah.
And so hopefully, I can contribute to helping people understand that self advocacy is so important in maintaining your health and wellness.
Yeah. Well, I think, you absolutely will for sure. But I think in terms of advocacy, people get like caught up in this idea that it's like this big grand thing. Advocacy is as simple as, like you said, Monet, researching and asking for second opinions and finding out what other information is out there. Just being an educated patient is advocacy. Because when you're not educated on what's going on with you, or when you're not paying attention to what's going on with you, you can't expect other people to tell you, what's going on with your body if you don't know what's going on with your body. Like, you have to know and understand what baseline is for you, what's par level for you, like what is right, like, what feels right in your body and what doesn't feel right in your body. And if you're not able to communicate that, or, you know, argue when somebody's not hearing that there's something wrong with you, that's, you're doing yourself a disservice. So advocacy is as small as just researching and making sure that you're understanding what's wrong and what's going on with what's happening with you, but with your body as well. um
Yeah, and a lot of times, Jamie, I'll just jump in here for a second
yeah.
to the point that both of you made earlier. Your body has compensatory mechanisms.
Hmm.
And so you may not even recognize that there's something going on, because it's a slight cough,
Yep.
or I'm feeling tired, but I've been working a lot of overtime, or putting in a lot of hours at work or at school or something like that. And so you're thinking, oh, a little fatigue here and there, a little fatigue here and there. And then you hit a tipping point, and it's like, no, something's really wrong here.
Yeah.
This isn't getting any better. And, but then, sometimes, and hardworking people have a tendency to just push through. I know I was one of them. And I discovered um, the lump in my neck on my own. I didn't go to the doctor. I was traveling to vacation and was rubbing my neck and felt a lump and was like, "What is that?" And then kind of followed up from there. But you know, I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel, I just felt like I always felt.
Yeah.
And so that preventive piece around, going to the doctor, following up, to your point, paying attention to what your body is telling you. There's a lot that we can share from our experiences that might clue someone in to say, hey, I'm going through something a little similar to that. Maybe I should go and get checked.
Yep. I always tell people too, if there's that thing that's just been going on with you forever and you've just been ignoring it, like, oh yeah, my leg always hurts, on Tuesdays. No, like that stuff's not normal. But to take it one step further, I think there's a conversation piece that has to be had about the screening criteria for lung cancer, because lung cancer again doesn't present with symptoms most of the time until you're already late stage. So like once you hit that stage 3, stage 4, that's when you start to feel the shortness of breath and you start to have the cough and you start, things are starting to happen to say, hey, something's going on in your body. But very rarely do we catch it early stage because there's nothing happening. And so everyone thinks, the absence of symptoms means you're good and you don't need anything. But there's preventative screenings that need to happen so that you can catch these things early. And that's what I constantly stand on soapboxes about. Like, we have got to amend the screening criteria because you can cure and treat lung cancer way more effectively at early stage. You can cut it out and be good to go, but like most of the time, we all get diagnosed at late stage because we never have any symptoms and because the screening criteria is only set up to catch late stage symptomatic lung cancer. When we're missing a whole subset of people and we're missing the entire possibility of catching it early. So I always argue that we need to amend that screening criteria because it really is missing a lot of key points, for this whole entire concept of lung cancer as a disease. But how long have you both been, like, are you both currently living in Louisiana, and how long have you been there? Are you born and raised, or are you
I'm
transplants, or?
I'm born and raised. I'm born at Charity Hospital, so
Hey,
that's
okay.
a most definitely
Okay.
my home. My grandmother's and I'm from the Bayou areas.
Okay.
Um and then my other one is like from they call it the metro area. Metro area, but I was raised on both sides of the river. I was raised in the city, and then I also in Tremere, and I also raised on the in the metro area.
Okay. And what
Mm.
about you, Rachel?
Oh, yeah. born and raised in New Orleans. Um, lived here most of my life. I've lived in other states for short periods of time. Um, was here for Katrina.
Oh, wow.
Came back afterwards. Been here a lot of years. I'm not gonna tell you my age either.
I don't need it. You good?
We'll find out in person. Like I'm gonna see
Right.
y'all
Yeah,
in
yeah, we'll find
person.
out in person. But yeah, started out as a studying for the priesthood way, way back in the day, and
Okay.
ended up in nursing school at one point in my life, and have been practicing nursing and been in healthcare now for a long time.
Okay. It's funny. Side note: they always back into our ages because they say, "Oh, how long are you a survivor now? 7 years. Oh, when were you diagnosed? At age 32. Okay, so now you know, like now you know my age. There you go. But yeah, there's a way to find out. But so I have to ask the question, of course, and put two and two together. Obviously with Cancer Alley being that sort of 85-mile stretch between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, how
Mhm.
close are you guys and your families to those areas? Like, do you feel
Ooh,
like that has had any impact on what you have going on currently?
you want to go first, or?
Go ahead, Renee.
Well, it's I can actually say this is most definitely the environment,
Hmm.
especially in urban areas. I would say um they literally like has a sewage plant right next to the housing development area.
Wow.
Yes. And then I also, after Katrina, I also worked in plants and
Mm.
stuff like that too. Not in New Orleans, but out of town in Houston. Also, even with fragrances and stuff like that, like I stopped using them. Then doing, I always could think about COVID.
Yep.
Everybody think that COVID it wasn't a big effect. Yes, it was a huge effect.
Hmm.
But by us living in those areas, I was pretty close. Pretty
Yeah.
close. A lot of plants in the areas and stuff like that. So, and I didn't know that at first. I didn't know that at first. I just thought it would just was allergies, and
It's
I
always
got an
the
asthma pump.
allergies.
And I kept telling them this is not the case. I was like, y'all, this is different. But living close, in the areas and stuff like that, even the metro area where my grandmother and stuff lived, they had plants there. They had spills there. So
And what about you, Reginald?
Yeah, New Orleans is an interesting town. It's surrounded by industry. Um, the Mississippi River, if you consider that the Mississippi River is basically the one of the main pipelines for drainage from northern United States to the Gulf of Mexico,
Mm.
um, with many tributaries from cities and towns along the river putting toxic waste into that water. That's the water we drink in New Orleans. Um, it's we're told that it's purified and that it's drinkable. It meets EPA requirements,
Hmm.
but all of that is in our water, and we get most of our fresh water from the Mississippi. The other thing that I would just, a lot of people don't know this, and it's happened in other parts of the country, but there are whole subdivisions in New Orleans built in the 60s and 70s, um, and mainly in communities of color that we're aware of, um, that were built on toxic waste dumps.
Yep.
And we're
Yep.
just starting to see the effects of clusters in different parts of the city, as well as the surrounding area, cancer clusters and other disease clusters. So it's definitely environmental. Things are happening now to sort of clean that up,
Hmm.
but you know how these buildings were built, the land that they were built on, in the early 60s and 70s when these subdivisions initially popped up. Um, there's one subdivision called Press Park in New Orleans that just in the last 2 or 3 years was able to get some justice around being able to move out of that neighborhood. Those families had to sue, and it was a very extended process over many years. They finally won that lawsuit, and the money was allocated for them to move, but that whole subdivision was built on a toxic waste dump.
Yeah.
And so those are the types of things that, we need to be aware of. We need to do our research, as both of you have done so well, uh, and recognize that uh, sometimes environmental factors can drive us to, do some upfront preventive work to get screened
Yeah.
early to make sure that we haven't been exposed to something.
And that's the reason why, Heal is very intentional about bringing this summit to New Orleans for that reason, because of the environmental equity aspect of it. And so there is a conversation that's going to be had on the main stage about how we increase environmental equity and, clean air and things like that. But it all ties into everything that we've been talking about, including this idea that, like, understanding that the screening needs to be amended. If you are in an area that's a high industry area, or even like a New York, you know what I mean, where there's times where you can look on your phone, and your phone, if you go to the weather app, it'll tell you what the air quality is, like if it's good to be outside or if it's bad to be outside. And I feel like if you live in an area where it can tell you that the air quality outside is bad, then the screening criteria should be very easy for you to get screened for lung cancer, because it's obvious that your environment is polluted and there's things happening that are causing sicknesses all around you. And so, like I said, Heal was very intentional about putting this summit, and it's very intentional about putting the summit where it does, because these are the impacts and the areas of impact in our community where, like you said, people don't know to do the research, people don't have the voice. That's why it's so important that we're trying to get so many Louisiana natives and residents to this summit so they understand what's going on around them, and they, or at the very least, if they understand but don't know what to do about it, let's give you some resources, let's give you some help, let's connect you to some people so that we can start to educate other folks and help to make some differences in the community. So I just, it's really interesting, because most people just think of New Orleans and think Mardi Gras and,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, etouffee, like stuff like that. Like, you're only thinking about the touristy things, and you're not thinking about the culture, the environment, the history, the background, the environment itself that's in the area. And, what is the earning that this city is getting? You know what I mean? Like, you're the money for the city comes in from these plants. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are producing petrochemicals to the United States, but they're not doing anything to protect you guys as citizens living there. And that, to
Yeah.
me, is, that's the problem.
Absurd. Absurd. Because this the thing that in the projects, what we call the projects, the housing development,
Hmm.
that it's literally a sewage right there on side of a sewage plant or right there on side of it.
Right. And they
And
don't know what to do about it.
I lived in that area. I lived across. I didn't live in the housing development, but I lived across in the area when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. And like, okay, y'all don't care, like, so the
Well,
environment.
they prey on the fact that, our areas are underdeveloped, underserved. We're not going to argue and we're not going to raise a fuss because we can't afford to move to, the richer areas or whatever. We got to live where we can live. And if it happens to be in an area where there's a sewer plant, you're going to choose between having a place to live or being homeless. You're going to choose the place to
Right.
live, unfortunately. And, the environment around you is a problem. And that's the environmental injustice that, we experience. And it goes so deep. It's like, once you go down the rabbit hole, you're
Even
like, damn.
right. Even though the people doesn't live there anymore,
Yeah.
they still have that stench.
Yep.
They still have that stench, and it's not just that. It goes farther out into the suburban areas.
Yeah.
In the metro area where I'm, where I once lived, or like I said, towards the Mississippi or whatever like that. But you go in other areas, you see all type of green trees and
Yeah.
green, you see the trees and stuff like that planted everywhere and stuff, and parks, nice parks and stuff. So
Mm-mm. And that's the side that they
try.
show on the flyers and the brochures. They don't show the other side, the
Yeah,
across
they
the
don't
street
show that
side.
part.
Yeah.
They don't show that part. They just
So bringing this conference to Louisiana, right where the environment that needs it, essentially. I know you guys haven't been there before. You don't know what to expect. You really aren't sure what what all it's going to look like. But what do you hope to gain from the weekend as a whole, being at the summit? Like, what is something you hope you walk away with once everything is said and done from coming to the summit this year?
I have a oh man, I have a few questions that need to be answered.
Sure.
um, I want to gain something. I want to gain to make sure that they bring more awareness to what's going on down here in our environment, in our air.
Mm-hmm.
Um, about more, about getting early screenings and stuff. Um, even about like sometimes about how the doctors and the insurance companies, because it's a lot too that goes with it too, because sometimes the insurance companies don't give us the right hand to get the screenings done.
Yep.
And I had that issue. And I had to wait 2 or 3 weeks before my official diagnosis or before staging or whatever. Like to this day, I still don't really know the staging or whatever. But I hope to get some clarity in certain areas, because I do have questions. I have questions about my biomarkers. I have questions about, you know, having our doctors, our oncologists. I realized our oncologist is a bit behind, because my oncologist wanted to put me on chemo, and that
Yeah.
wouldn't have worked for my type of cancer. So I
Yep.
want the doctors to be more aware or whatever. Even radiation, because I even asked him about the cyber knife, and he didn't say too much about that. And my tumor burden was small enough to get the cyber knife. Instead of him telling me the truth and was like, "Hey, your insurance doesn't pay for it," he just said it was too big. It's not too big.
Right. Because he's banking on the fact that you're not going to research and do your own
Yeah. And
background
it
info on
it
it.
made me, oh man, Jamie, it got underneath my skin so bad. And I was like, he think I'm stupid. Like, and I was like, we need the resources. Like,
Yeah. Did
I
you challenge
even
him on it?
I just told him that, look, my holistic team want to work with you. He was like, well, they need the blood test, need the blood test. He was like, well, why don't you get the radiation? The radiation is that's invasive for our type of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It's invasive because where our mind is located at the lower right lobe, it moves. Remember, we breathing, so we're breathing out
Mm-hmm.
and in and out and in. It would have been better because he was like, "We will for consolidative." I was like, "No, because you're hitting that area." Well, then, what he said something about the? He mentioned something about, well, you're young. It's like, no. Well, if something does happen, we go on more medicine. Who wants to be on more medicine? I'm already taking 8 pills a day.
Right.
Like, who wants to be on more medicine? So I was like, no. Thank God for one of our fellow sisters in the community, our doctor that's in the community. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it's okay to mention her name.
Yeah, she's fine. She's a regular.
Yeah, Dr. Sine. Thank
Sydney.
God for her. And she was like, no. She said, if it's not progressing, you okay. That's what made me made the decision. I was like, no, well, no radiation. So I asked him about the cyber knife because I did the research. The cyber knife moves with the body.
Mm-hmm.
He told me, oh no, it's too big. I was like, no, it's not. Like,
I'd call him on it.
I
I'd be like,
did my own
listen,
research.
right, it's not too big. I want to say, if it's too big, then I'd like to get a
It's the
second opinion.
size of a corn kernel. That's the size of it. A
Mm-hmm.
piece. And once he told me that, I was like, I was through. I was in flames then. I was like, we need more of us.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it like that, but we do.
Yeah.
Because we need more of us in the industry to understand even our own DNA and our own genotype too.
Yeah.
We need more of us. We do. And that's what motivated me, to be honest, to go back to school.
Reginald, I think we got to go to you next, actually, because we were supposed to ask you, as a first time attendee and also as a panelist now. So you are hitting it from both sides of the coin here. what are you most looking forward to, or what are you hoping to gain from this weekend as a whole? Again, you're not really quite sure and you've never been before, but what are you thinking that you'd like to gain?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's the networking, also the exposure to what is out there for treatment protocols, and what the latest technology is. Um, when I share my story with people, they ask me about, um, the type of treatment I received, and of course, how are you doing? But
Hmm.
also, what can I do to get ahead of something like this? What can I do to prevent it, if anything? Um, and I want to be knowledgeable, but I also want to share with others so that they can take this seriously, and recognize that um, you're walking around and experiencing people in the community who are going through all types of different things, emotionally, physically, etc. And you know, um, that could be you, you know,
Yeah,
uh, and so, what do you do to take care of yourself? So I'm hoping that I can contribute, to someone else's awareness, but also gain some knowledge for myself.
I love that. Okay. And then so I know we're running out of time. We only got about 10 minutes left on the show here, and I want to be respectful of you guys this Sunday afternoon. Um, but just, real quick for the Heal Collaborative team, we want to make sure that everything we do resonates with the communities that we're in. So because you guys are Louisiana natives and residents, is there anything that we should be doing or anything that, you feel is important as a Louisiana native that we really drive home to the community or that we do to connect more with the community for you guys? Don't both jump at once.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. I think that the Heal Collaborative, has. So I wasn't really aware of the Heal Collaborative. Um,
Mhm.
a friend of mine that I work with um, shared the story of the Heal Collaborative with me, at a high level, and asked if I would be willing to go to the conference in New Orleans. That and they know, this friend of mine knows that I have lung cancer, and I've been treated for it. And so, as you all know, it takes a minute to get out of your shell and to share your story with others.
Yeah.
And so, I've been on that journey to. I started out with, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. To, I'm still here, and people need to know that they should get screened and they should pay attention to what their bodies are doing. And so that kind of brought me to the Heal Collaborative, and uh, someone from the Heal Collaborative asked me to if I would be willing to share my story and participate in a panel. Um, so I feel like if we're going to serve others, that and I do feel like God has put us here, um, to lift up community, then these are the stories that people need to hear,
Yeah.
because it makes it real for them. And so that's why I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. Is there something or somewhere that we should be reaching out to have the most impact? Like I said earlier, we want to make sure we get as many Louisiana residents in the room as possible so we can get this information out. But what's a good place in you guys' opinion for us to, start, or, where are some of the areas, the hot areas that we should be considering for, maybe some boots on the ground marketing and things like that to make sure we're targeting those areas?
Say it again. I can hear.
Yeah, I'm just saying, where are, in you guys' opinions, where are some of the areas that we should be focusing on to attract more people to attend the summit? Like, we don't want to be, marketing and advertising to maybe neighborhoods that are not as affected, so what are some of the areas that maybe we need to have some boots on the ground in to get more residents out to the summit?
The housing development areas, the areas that where they have plants and stuff at, I would say the Marrero area on the West Bank of New Orleans. It's like maybe like some of y'all maybe come from big cities. It's like 20 minutes,
Hmm.
15 minutes outside because New Orleans is rather small. By me being a traveling entertainer, I used to travel a lot, and it's like okay, my city is big, it's large, and people is small. But like
Yeah.
in the areas where those where the plants are at are very much so impact. Even in some places like outside, I can't think of the other places right now. But I know
Okay.
for sure in the Marrero area, this particular area needs to be seen and heard of because this is where some of the plants are at.
Okay. Reginald, how about you? You have any suggestions for us on areas, hot areas for us to target for marketing this summit?
Well, I think that when you when I think about um, the social determinants of health and where um, how to target, getting information to the community. You know, New Orleans is built on tourism, and the service industry in New Orleans, the culture bearers of New Orleans, they are grassroots people who, many of whom come from very humble beginnings, and they're not really knowledgeable about what's out there to support them. So I think, the hotel restaurant industry folks, they have health fairs all the time, or frequently. Um, there's an organization called New Orleans and Company. They do a lot to recruit tourism into the city, but also around workforce development. These individuals, many of us, grew up working in environments that are toxic,
Mm-hmm.
without even being aware of it. So, from a grassroots level, I would say that. The other thing that I would say is, we have healthcare entities that are all along what we call the river parishes, where many of these chemical plants are situated along the river, and that's for a reason. And I mean, when I tell you, there are church communities, there are neighborhoods that are less than 200 yards from these plants. Um, and people have been living there for generations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, you know, um, there's a whole faith-based community that has been the primary advocates for individuals living in those communities. My own family members live in those communities. And so, to Monet's point, it's got to be, in many instances, it needs to be where people live, but also where they get their health care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so that would be some of my thoughts about that. We have advocacy groups here, um, that are also focusing on environmental factors that affect people's health. And I think that just like when I joined an organization that was an FQAC, Heal Collaborative seems to me to be one of the best kept secrets
Kept secret,
around.
right?
You know.
Say it
Right.
louder
I
for the
like
people in the
at
back.
right at first, because me being from New Orleans, we tend to heal ourselves
Yeah.
because we're afraid to go to the hospital.
Hmm.
That's a subject we really need to reach on because we need to go to the hospital.
Yep.
And hospital, we need to be feel safe going to the hospital and not feeling like people is doing malpractice, like the wrong malpractice on us.
Yeah. Yep.
So me coming into it, and I remember when I first talked, I was like, look, I'm hitting this from both sides now. I'm doing a basically a little science project on myself. because in New Orleans we are known. It's not, oh, this voodoo. No, it's not always like that. Not always the witchcraft voodoo stuff like that. That's what some people think. We literally healing ourselves, drinking our teas and certain medicines. We cutting ourselves off from certain things that we like. We like our macaroni and cheese and our stuffed bell peppers and gumbo and all this other stuff. Like you say, etouffee earlier. Um and we'll cut off all that so we can start healing our bodies because we are afraid to go to the hospital.
Yeah. Yep.
And like for instance, like I'm one of the first few people that my doctor knew to check my biomarkers. If not, like you said earlier, I don't think I still would have been here today
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't know what to do. So we have to, go to, as far as go to communities to go learn about things and heal, heal ourselves, and also hopefully to bring to some of the doctors down here that hey, make sure you're checking your patient's biomarkers
Yep.
instead of trying to throw them under radiation or chemotherapy
Yep.
when it may not work for our type of cancer.
Absolutely.
So it's only 1% of the people and he may be 1% of the people taking be on immunotherapy when we can't.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, as you
So
guys were like, as Louisiana residents, please pass the word on to the folks you know. Reginald, you said your whole family lives in Cancer Alley area. Monet, you said you got folks and your grandmom and everybody. So if you know
yeah.
that could benefit from this summit, please pass the word on to them. Let them get registered. Have them attend. Empower your family and your friends so that you guys can all band together as a network and do what you need to do down in Louisiana. But in the meantime, I want to make sure I give you guys an opportunity to shout out your contact information. Anybody's interested in connecting with you, via social media or email, why don't you give your contact info for the listeners and the folks that are watching so they can connect if they want to ask more questions?
You wanna go first?
Go ahead, Monet.
Oh, mine is, well, I am a cosplayer, you guys. So mine is cosplay underscore LAMONEY on my Instagram. Facebook is Monet MONET Williams WILLIAMS. My IG is cosplay underscore LAMONET. My TikTok I think is Creole underscore Monet. I want y'all to watch my journey, and I want everybody to hope hear my story, hear my journey upon me surviving lung cancer, and hopefully near future defeating it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll share that link as well. Or if you find it, you can drop it. So this is a YouTube video, so you can put a comment on it. Go ahead and you can drop the link to your video on your story so that people can click it and share it just in case they
Okay.
missed that. And Reginald, go ahead and share your contact info. Whatever you're comfortable sharing. Don't feel like you have to share. Like some people are like, I don't.
Sure. Well, so to be honest with you, I'm not on social media.
Okay.
Um, and so, but I can be reached at Reginald REGINALD dot Vix V is in Victor ICKS at crescentcare.org.
And Reginald, while you have the stage, why don't you share a little bit about what Crescent Care Community Health Center is and what you guys do just before we close here?
Sure. Crescent Care as I said earlier, is a federally qualified health center. Um, we operate under a federal grant, as all of the FQHCs in the country do. Our mission is to provide low barrier, high quality healthcare services to the community. Um, at Crescent Care, we provide a variety of different services, and ability to pay is not a barrier to receiving those services. Primarily primary care, but also substance use disorder treatment, um, infectious disease, OBGYN, and a host of other things. Community health centers are nested in neighborhoods so that individuals who have difficulty with transportation or access to larger healthcare facilities can receive very high quality primary health care in their own neighborhoods. And I can tell you right now, primary health care intervention is the first step. because many times that's where the journey begins.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the providers who actually help identify these types of issues, and they will coordinate and facilitate coordination of a broader range of care if you need it. So that's what we do. I've been doing that for about 11 years, working in a community health center, and all are welcome.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you both for your time today. I am absolutely looking forward to giving you both a big hug at the summit in like 2 months.
Yes.
Um, in the meantime, if you are late to the party, ladies and gentlemen, and you have listened to this and you said, hey, this is something I want to be at, make sure you hit AALCPC Summit, and I'll put that in the chat in a minute. .com so you can register, or just visit the Heal Collaborative. It's right there at the top of the website. Go ahead, get registered. It is a free summit. Heal will pay for your travel, your accommodations, and they feed you really well. And we eat in New Orleans food, y'all. So you know we're gonna be eating good. So
Being good.
eating good all weekend long. So please make sure you register, or if you know somebody who could be benefit from this summit, please share it with them and let them know to register. We are taking registration probably up until couple of weeks into March, and then we're going to have to cut it off. So you're running out of time to get registered and get your seat secured for the summit here. So I want to thank everybody who listened today and who tuned in. Anybody who left comments, we appreciate you as well. If you want to connect with me on social media, I always do this and I always botch it. So my TikTok is It's Just Jams, all one word, Jams with an S. My Instagram is just_jams, and my Facebook is Jamie Jam. You notice a trend here. And if you want to connect with the Heal Collaborative, they are just at Heal Collaborative on Instagram and Facebook. You can also check them out on YouTube, and you can watch past episodes of Voices That Heal to get more familiar. But in the meantime, make sure you keep it locked. We'll see you guys at the summit. I'll be back next month with another episode. Thank you, Reginald and Monet, for your time today. Be safe, and we will see you all in New Orleans.
Yes.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.